Business at the EasyJet check-in is a little more brisk than usual this morning. The airline is adding an extra route from Bristol to Budapest, and today sees the start of the new service. In the EasyJet office, flight crews and cabin crews are preparing for another day of busy schedules involving the 7 aircraft which are now based at the airport. For EasyJet's base captain Brian Mullin and First Officer Andrew Sindri, there's a lot to concentrate on this morning. They'll be flying the aircraft to Budapest on a route they've never used before and landing at an airport which is also totally new to them. It's an exercise which takes detailed planning, involving a host of reference books and flight manuals.
We need to familiarise ourselves with the arrival procedures, the approach procedures, the layout of the airport, which we've done. We've checked the weather, checked the winds. There's nothing to affect us. Is there any maintenance going on at the airfield that may affect us? There's nothing. And then we get our flight plan, come up with a fuel decision, and we pass that through to operations. They'll load the fuel now for us. And from here on in, really, it's pretty much a standard flight for us as an year. It's just today was more familiarising ourselves with the new airport. The airways and the routing is actually stored in the computer on board. And it's a question of us just loading it up once we get on board the aircraft. So, yeah, the airplane will find its way there. We'll sort of help it along, but it will find its way there, yeah. Still, it was exciting to go to a new place. It's new for us all. It's the first day today, obviously. So yeah, there is a buzz involved.
And as usual before each and every flight, there's a final check with the dispatcher on the number of passengers, the cargo, and even the amount of fuel that's been taken on board.
I'll give you the new one. I'll give you the corrected one.
Meanwhile, the cabin crew make their final checks on the safety equipment and the PA system.
Yeah, I got 7 at the front. I just brought another one down to put it by the other. All right?
In the cockpit, Brian Mullin loads the aircraft computer with those all-important flight details. Just a few minutes after 7 o'clock, and the passengers on the first Budapest flight start to board. Brian and his crew are almost ready to be on their way. Rachel Feltham is in charge of today's cabin crew.
Bristol as a base is fantastic. We've got a great bunch of crew, and you know you're going to have a giggle. It's really, really hard work, and starting at 5 o'clock, 3 days on the trot is an absolute killer, but you've got to love it to do it. You've got to have a good sense of humour, because you've got to, because of everything that you see every day. You've got to be outgoing, but you've got to be prepared to work hard and to give up your Friday and Saturday nights and Christmas and New Year. So you've got to be realistic about the job. People come in and think, oh wow, it's fantastically glamorous. But we're on our hands and knees on turnaround. There's no glamour there whatsoever.
For at least one passenger, today's flight to Budapest is very special.
I'm going to see my mum in Hungary, in Budapest.
But you haven't seen her for a long time, have you?
Yeah, 2.5 years. And she's getting older a bit.
Now tell me why you haven't seen her for 2.5 years.
Honestly, is the distance, the London airport from Bristol, get bus, get to the airport, longer the bus the coach time to London than the flight from Bristol to Hungary. So it's not really easy. But it's nice, okay, with the EasyJet. My husband is very exciting as well because he's not.
She usually goes by coach.
Yeah, coach, but the coach is 36 hours. I can't do that anymore. No.
We saw it promoted, the EasyJet flights to Budapest, and I said both of us could go for a few days, so that's what we did.
But she don't know. She doesn't know I'm going. No, secret. I told her a little. I may think about to going, but she don't know really what date and when. No, it's about an hour to go. there would be another day on a coach. Just about.
Any chocolates, aftershave,
Any souvenirs?
cosmetics,
Radiant special offer?
any rubbish or empties.
So far, the first flight to Budapest is going without a hitch. In fact, favourable weather conditions means the EasyJet Boeing is making good progress. The landing in the former Soviet bloc country turns out to be well ahead of schedule.
We landed 30 minutes early, so no problems at all, really, all very straightforward. No glitches. Couldn't have been easier, really.
But the work hasn't ended.
George, you got a dustpan and brush?
Yeah. Why? Oh, God. I don't even do this at home.
We're doing a transit check walk around, so basically we've done a thorough walk around on the first sector. This is more or less just confirming everything is still as it was before we left Bristol. This should be free spinning, no restriction on it, no damage to the blades on it. If there was anything such as a bird had gone through, we'd usually see some sort of debris lying around. So, nice and clean, new airplane. So.
I love my job. I haven't even got a dustpan and brush at home.
General condition of the tyres, no shredding, no bareness, nothing. All the cables are attached, no leaking. And then we can tell the brake wear indicators by the other side. These little things here, this tells us how our brakes are wearing down. Once this becomes flush with this, it's time to change the brakes. Have a look in the wheel well here. No leak, nothing hanging loose.
It's what you have to do, isn't it? Glam. OK, work is done.
Thank you. We'll take those guys out the hole before we go. And that's it. All in place, ready to go.
And with everything cleaned and checked in just over 20 minutes, it's time to repeat the journey. This time, taking off back to Bristol. Outside the airport fire station, Jamie Webster is preparing for another training session. He's tipped for a medal at the World Firefighter Games in Sheffield. It means long hours on the road and a real dedication to his sport.
I've always had a love of cycling, and I mean I've always watched the Tour de France as a kid and always dreamt of riding for Bianchi. And I've about 2 or 3 years ago I started riding again after a sort of long break. Really just couldn't afford it and didn't have the time. I got back into it about 3 years ago, and this is my first sort of serious year at racing. And I just wanted to see how far I can go. It's about winning for me, and you know, I'm not in it for what I can get out of it with bikes and stuff. I mean, I'll ride anything I'm given, but I just like the feeling of winning. You're looking some days between 5 and 6 hours in the saddle, about 5 or 6 times a week. You know, I don't really. The only 2 days I don't ride my bike is when I'm working here. What makes a good cyclist is suffering. It's about hurting. And it's the one that can hurt the most that's going to do the best. I mean, it doesn't matter how big or how strong you are. If you can't suffer, you won't win. Especially when you're talking like climbing some of the big hills in races, you get to a point where you feel like your muscles are going to burst. Well, you've got to push it a bit further than that. To a point, you know, where you can't physically do it anymore. Your body gives in, not your head. It's one of those sports that you can't hide. There's no hiding. If you're not up to it, you're out the back. I mean, you know, sports like football, if you're not having a good day, you tend to sort of blend in with the rest. Cycling, you haven't got that sort of advantage. If you're having a bad day, you'll get left behind. I'll be honest, I've not had a great season so far, but my focus has been on Sheffield, getting up there and having a good result. The circuit plays to my advantages, and you know, I've been really putting it in for the last month to make sure I'm in good form for it. I don't know if there'll be anyone my level riding, but there's no doubt they'll be up there to want to win. I mean, it's a world championship, so you're going to get some good riders from the continent, and there are good riders on the continent. I get a lot of stick for having shaved legs, hence I earned the name Wendy. We did play a joke on the general office. It's when she said about my shaved legs, and I showed her. We actually convinced her that I dressed as a woman at the weekend. And she actually went away believing it.
But do your friends, I mean, do your mates here support you? I mean, you've got to have support to do this sort of thing.
In honest, they do, because they're all sporting types. We've got a lot of footballers, and we get a bit of competition going between the two, which is the better sport. But cycling always wins.
And winning is very much in Jamie's mind. But the competition in Sheffield is going to be very strong.
Would you like some breakfast this morning?
Airline food is probably one of the most talked about subjects by anyone who's ever flown. We either like it, hate it, or simply tolerate it. Passengers flying from Bristol consume over 500,000 meals each year, and most are made just by the airport itself.
We produce the food for about 11 customers, and in the summer we produce 4,000 to 5,000 meals a day. A lot of the airlines now have more healthier menus. There's a lot more special meals, the vegetarians and diabetic meals, gluten-frees. But the standard breakfast remains the same, with the sausage and the bacon and the egg. And the hot meal, we still have the cottage pie and those kind of meals that are boarded. Most of it's visual, because you're very much stuck with the space of the aircraft, what you can fit onto the tray. And also the passenger doesn't have a great deal of space to eat in, so it's very visual, lots of colour, and trying to get the passenger excited about what they're seeing as well as what they're tasting.
It's a highlight of their flight, really. You know, a lot of them are waiting for their meal, and they want to know what they're going to be fed, and they want to know what their tray looks like. Yeah, so it's very important. I think it's fantastic. Just have a look at this. This is what the passengers are receiving on today's flight, and they're getting sausage and Kilcone and mash, a nice pastry, and chocolate ugly fudge cake. So it's superb. And this is actually my favourite meal. This is one of the nicest meals, I would say, that we serve on board.
But even the most popular meals are not always to everyone's liking. And when it comes to food, not all meal trays are equal.
We have our charter menus, and we also have our business menus. The airlines give us a good guidance on what they want. Some airlines decide for us what their passengers are going to have, and others let us. We have a regional creative team that will come in and develop meals for them, which is to do with the initial cost we're given, which is the big driver, and then it's to do with the nutrients in the meal and the general look of the meal. If you can get it to look like a substantial meal for the passenger, then obviously it's more attractive.
Airline food has to cater for all budgets and tastes, whether it's a simple egg and sausage sandwich, probably destined to be a crew snack, or something more exotic.
On a business class meal, most of the equipment we would use is China. They have a more expensive product, they'll have more of it, they may use steak, they may use a better grade of chicken. On the charter side of meals, a lot of the stuff is mass produced and sent to us.
But in a world controlled by price and portion size, there's still a need to experiment and offer an airline something different. Today, Chef Malcolm King is creating some new breakfast menus for one of the company's business customers.
Got a brief to look at the breakfast on private air, because we've been running the menus now for about 6 months, and it's time for a change, because it's the same passengers every day. So even though they've got 4 cycles, it gets a little bit repetitive, so we're looking at some alternatives. I'm thinking about the type of people flying on the plane. If they were all French, or whether they're English, or whether they're elderly, if there's any children, anything like that. So we have to think about all these things. You can't go too mad, but this is a little bit of an upmarket service for us, so it's a little bit above the norm, shall we say.
I think a few years back, every airline was having to cut back on the amount of food that they gave to passengers. Before, you would maybe just get a hot roll or a sandwich or something on board, whereas now we seem to have done a full circle, and we're going back to serving like a 3-course meal.
Cabin crew like Paula Costello serve thousands of meals a year, So what would be an ideal one for her?
I think it would have to be, our company actually do what we call around the world VIP trips, where we have a first-class aircraft with our own chefs on board. And what we actually do for our passengers is we go to the table and we set their table for them prior to their meal, and everything's done silver service, and the food is of a very high standard. It'd be lovely if we could give that to all our passengers.
Just going to have another check on my feathered fringe a moment. This time of year now is a time when you tend to get a lot of the birds that have, the fledglings that have come out now, and they tend to be feeding on the insects and other various little bugs that get in the grass. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, if you notice there's a few starlings on that porter cabin over there. A little bit of telephone mast. So this is where you need a pyrotechnic, but unfortunately you've got the MT section there. So blooming great flare going down in the middle of that lot, they would be impressed.
Jim Calloway is on bird patrol.
Morning, Tower. On the apron this time, like to enter taxi lane Zulu and proceed to Alpha 2 into the undershoot. Looks like a flock of pigeons landed there a couple of moments ago. Just want to check it over.
It's a never-ending task to keep the airfield clear of the potential hazard. But bird patrols are not just restricted to the airfield. Jim and his colleagues are also responsible for an area of several miles around Bristol International as well.
We also go off the airfield to look at landfill sites, and they're a major bird attraction, certainly for the gull population. And no doubt people have seen films of landfill sites and operations and actually see the gulls. They're feeding on all the waste that goes in there. We've got access to all the landfill sites in our area, or we call a bird circle, which extends to about 13 miles around the airport. And any landfills there, we can go in when we feel fit. Usually we give them a call as a matter of courtesy to say we're going to drop by. And we go in, and if they're tipping domestic waste in there, then they've got to have sufficient bird hazard control in place to deal with that, to keep the birds out.
These crows on some newly ploughed land are no threat and can be left in peace. Back on the airfield, an old Trident aircraft finds itself being put to an unexpected use.
This is an old disused aircraft we've got on the south side of the airport. We've had numerous swallows' nests inside the actual aircraft hold, and actually you can see one in here. So it's right up in the top where the ceiling is. That's one area. I'm surprised now nature will adapt to different surroundings. The swallows fledged about 2 weeks ago from here. They're already flying around quite happily around the airfield. Swallows, as such, do not cause a major bird strike hazard. They're a low-weight bird. They don't flock in dense flocks. They certainly don't do it here anyway in the UK. We'll probably get a number of swallows struck by aircraft simply because the insect life on the airfield population will explode. One of the key insects that the swallows go for, the crane fly, they hatch and come out, and the swallows catch them. It's quite obvious when they're around because we actually have quite a few swallows flying around across the airfield. A couple of weeks from now, they should have their reserves built up fully after eating all these crane flying insects, and they'll be heading off back south again. Yeah, these swallows have travelled thousands of miles to get here. In fact, a couple of years ago, we had one that was struck by an aircraft, and it had a tiny little ring on it, and we sent it away, and we discovered this bird is about 3 years old, so it's done at least 2 or 3 trips backwards and forwards from Africa. I'm not that well up on my geography, but that certainly amounts to many thousands of miles. Fascinating, really. Fascinating creatures. These are goldfinches. There's also some linnets amongst them, and the goldfinches, they tend to enjoy plucking all the thistles out of, all the seeds out of the thistles. They look like juvenile ones as well. You can see the younger ones there scrambling around. They haven't got, looks like they quite got the technique right for grasping onto the actual vegetation there they're feeding off of.
But some birds who use the airfield are a real danger to arriving and departing flights. Jim spotted a large flock of seagulls which appear to be heading directly for the main runway and into the path of landing planes.
Tower, this is Ranger.
Ranger Tower.
Tower Ranger information, bird activity in the south-east corner of the airfield this time, carrying out dispersal over.
Roger, this coastal light aircraft Holden Juliet 2.
Roger Tower, copy the light aircraft Juliet 2. Unfortunately, when gulls tend to get into a thermal, they're very, very difficult to shift by the normal means, so we have to resort to the use of pyrotechnics. That appears to have the desired effect. What we're going to do is just hold on here a minute or two longer to make sure they disperse well out to the south. That's certainly hastened their dispersal. They're not quite high now, so they're actually flying back through the approach for runway 27. And sufficiently high enough now that any aircraft will be below them. Job done. I've just logged in all the details. I'm just going to continue and put a few more details on the thing. All this data we're putting in now gets downloaded into our computer. So every month I can analyse all the bird activity.